Hello! Today we have an exciting box from Eachine, but just before we get into that, a quick reminder, please like or dislike this video if you didn't like it. Comment down below, don't forget to subscribe, and if you can find it, click on that bell icon, it'll tell you when I'm uploading videos. So, in this box from Eachine, we have something called the LAL3. Now, if you recognise the name LAL, a while back we did the review of the LAL5, which was quite exciting in terms of the features they put in there. They put in a Tarsier, it was 6S, they had these amazingly large blingy motors, and it had a Bluetooth connection so you could do things like from your phone. However, it didn't really set the world on fire. It was okay, it was quite capable. If you had it, you'd be like, yeah, this is alright, this is okay. It just wasn't it wasn't the best of the bunch. So will the LAL3 do any better? As you might expect, the LAL3 is a 3-inch version as opposed to the LAL5, which was the 5-inch prop. So let's open up the box, and we're looking at this packaging and this gubbins here. In the first bag we have a set of Racer Star 3040 props. I think we've got 2 sets of props there. We've got some zip ties, screws, little spanner things, prop nuts, battery strap. So let's get the actual machine out itself, which is very tightly packaged in the foam, and it's not too dissimilar from the sort of looks of its big brother. It's got these TPU protectors again, it's gone with the blingy motors. These are 1408s, and this supports 3 or 4S battery, so it should fly along quite nicely, we hope, on a 4S. Not as extensively spec'd as its big brother. So on this one we've got HD, but we've got the Turtle V2, so we haven't got a proper FPV camera. I'm always a little bit, I don't really like looking at things through the HD recording camera because frankly the image isn't as good, so we'll have to see how that goes. And you can see often it's a case of like the stack gets too high, so they've extended it and they've put this bit at the back. This comes as plug and fly, and you see here we've got this servo type end swinging about, and we've got a nice little room there, so we need to install our own receiver. It is an F4 flight control, of course. The ESC board should be running BL32, so will it come set up with the RPM filters as default? The VTX is a bit different, just from terms of the power. SmartAudio compatible, and it says it supports 0, so some sort of pit mode, 25, 100 and 300. 300 is a bit of a weird one, that's all. So it's kind of interesting, this one, because it seems like these are like pretty hot feeling motors, so it seems like it's going to have the power there, but it's also going HD, and that puts it kind of in the middle of stuff. I would say currently my favourite 3-inch for speed is this one. This is the Diatone ER349SX, and that was like partly developed by Eachine as well, and that was an absolute screamer. This belted along, and I really did enjoy flying this. You can see that the motors are smaller in height. Is that the stator? I can remember. This is 4000 kV, this is 3750, but the HD camera feels like it's a little bit kind of like this one. This I've been using quite recently, the Sector 132. This is currently in the 2.5 version with the prop guards, but I flew this 3 inches and it didn't have the speed, but it certainly had the Tarsier, which meant it got decent FPV footage and decent recording footage. So this kind of tries to, it looks like it's going to have the speed and it's going to have the recording footage, if not the FPV footage. It's just interesting to sort of think, does this sit in the middle of these lot or what? We'll find out. Anyway, first things first, I need to find a receiver somewhere. I've run out, so I'll be ripping it off another quad. Install that in. As I said, there's plenty of space under there. Then we'll get it on Betaflight, get it set up, and get it out to the field to fly, because lockdown is relaxed enough so I can actually go out and I don't have to talk about lockdown anymore. Hooray! Join me in a second. Okay, well, we've got the LAL3 plugged in, so let's have a look-see on Betaflight and see what's going on. Setup wise, all connected, moving about right. It's just a touch off actually on the accelerometer. Now it's down flat, so let's recalibrate that. Ports wise, we've got not much going on there. We've got a Serial RX here, that's going to be our receiver, and we've got TBS SmartAudio and UART2, no other UARTs to use. Config wise, D-Shot 600, it's not running the RPM filters. It claims to have BL32, but they're not using the potential there if that's the case. Motor stop not on, so I'll be adding that. Out of the box, it's running an 8K 2K loop. I'm not going to alter any of the flight characteristics because I want to see what it goes like out of the box before I start messing around. But yeah, there's some stuff to do. Obviously, my craft name needs to go in there. For some reason, they've added soft serial and they've added telemetry. And I don't want air mode, but other than that, it's okay. The D-Shot beacon's not on. It doesn't feel like it's very well set up. Pitch tuning wise, this looks like not much has happened. That's why it's not running anything special. I didn't look at that. Look at that firmware. Betaflight 355. Wow, that is old, really old. So, but it'd be interesting to see how it flies, and then we can always come back and change it. And that's obviously one of the reasons I wasn't paying attention why we don't have RPM filters is because that didn't come in until Betaflight 4.1. This is running an old version. Anyway, my receiver is bound. They've got the right channel map. My RSI is flashed away there on channel 12, or aux 12, so I have to sort that out. Modes, they've included ARM, and they seem to want you to fly angle on all occasions, it would seem. Well, if aux 2's on at least. OSD, wow, just warnings. I have to say, Eachine's a bit weird because sometimes things seem to be set up quite nicely from the get-go. And other times it's like, whatever, we've put the stuff together, you sort it out. And this is very much one of the times where you will be sorting out the entire config. So I'm going to go away and do the config on this one. I didn't check what the rates were. I assume they're going to be absolutely, not quite. Normally you'd expect a super rate of 0.7. This is 0.75 for whatever reason. But they've barely touched anything on here. I'm going to set it up. I'm going to keep it on Betaflight 355 because I want to know how it's going to fly from their settings, if you like, before we do any interesting changes on it. So I'll go away and do that now, and then we'll have a look and see how this little Cadex camera is set up. I just had to do a little mod here. I'd connected up my XM Plus and poked the antennas through those holes, but they were flapping about in the wind, so I put this little antenna tube that I got from somewhere else there just to keep them away from the props. Could have done with having that in the pack as well, really. So after I was setting my OSD up, I went in to have a look at SmartAudio, and I found a quite serious problem. That is, if we go into SmartAudio, it just comes up with this, and that's basically meaning that SmartAudio is not seeing any data coming back. And if we have a look at the stat, we see we're sending data, nothing is coming back. This can't be good. You notice as well that we've got the Cadex OSD all over the screen, which we can't get rid of easily. Okay, with SmartAudio not working, the next thing to do was to pop the top off and have a look. And we've got the VTX on top here, and we can see pretty instantly that this was never going to work. Why is that? Quite simply, if we look here at the pin connector, you see we've got 3 connections, and we can kind of figure out, just based on the colours, it's probably ground, 5 volt and video. And you can't do SmartAudio with 3 connections, you need 4. You need the data connection to go to the UART. And this in itself just links here to 3 pins in this little VTX. Obviously I've unscrewed this so I could take a better look, and on the underside of here you can see we do actually have a data connection which presumably talks SmartAudio. I did look this up in what it said it was on the spec, and what I found was not what this matches, so I don't know if it's just the fact that they've named it after something that already exists, or they've misused the name and it's not what it says it was. But I could not find out the pinouts of this, so what I'm going to have to do is basically do a continuity test to go from data, figure out which pin it is. On this flight controller, which it says is basically especially for this quad, I had a search around and I felt it looked the same as the old Eachine, I think it was the X140, which was supposed to be a 6S quad, but if you put 6S on it, it exploded and fell out of the sky. Seems like the same flight controller completely. And interestingly, what I noticed on this one, although it's a different VTX, there are 4 pins going into there, and there is a green signal pin coming from the VTX, which
should do smart audio. So I don't know if it's the fact that they ran out of 4-pin cables, so they couldn't be bothered and just connected to the 3-pin, or what. I think it's unacceptable to say, hey, this is a plug and fly cord with smart audio where you don't have smart audio configured. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow this cable, reconfigure it so it's round the right way once I figure out which is which, and try plugging that in again and see where we go from. But you know, this is we're off to a really bad start here, because that should just work out of the box. It's completely unacceptable. It comes with the wrong cable. But let's see if we can get it working first. Okay, so just to explain quickly what I did, I used a multimeter to check out where this RX pin went on here, and it turned out to be the 4th pin along. So what I then did is take the XF140, borrow the cable, steal a part of it. So what I've basically done is taken the green cable and added it to the right pin in hopefully both situations. I'm still not sure about the pin out here, and we'll try and plug that in and see if it works first. But yeah, not everybody's going to have a spare pin that's going to fit between these, so it's, as I said, completely unacceptable. Perhaps it's just an oversight, perhaps it's reviewer's curse and I got the only dodgy one and everybody else is fine, but not good. Not a good start. But let's plug this in and see if it works or explodes first.
So this fixed the smart audio, but if you have a look at the sort of picture I'm getting from this video now, it's not looking very nice, is it? It's all over the shop really. And I found I didn't know what it was. I couldn't tell if it was a simple overheat or I was getting a failure in the VTX. It would certainly be worse when I sort of touched it and moved it, and I kind of got the impression it was maybe a dodgy component that was getting even worse when there was any movement in there, and it's because it always started off quite clean and then got worse, so maybe heat was playing a part. So I kind of thought, oh, maybe I've screwed this up and it didn't want that cable. I've tried moving it back to normal. I tried changing the VTX, see if it was the cable, and the replacement VTX was fine. So a little bit of a mystery there.
Okay, after more testing, the VTX seems to be working. I think it's overheating very quickly and then going into having a problem because there's no airflow. So I hope that's it. I've had one ready to replace it just in case, but obviously I want to test the original if I can. However, while I've got the top off, it leads me to another problem. We can see on the OSD that we've got all that information from the Turtle. Okay, I think this is the Whoop Baby by the looks of it. You can see we've got some pins here, and 2 of those pins are for connecting up the OSD control, i.e. one of those little 4-button controllers which lets you change stuff. We don't get that in the pack. We've got nothing soldered on there. We've got no way of changing it. So I'm not going to mess around and connect one, because I want to fly it how it came and see exactly how annoying that overlay is. I might shift around some bits to sort of keep it out of the way. I don't know yet. And I'm having to assume that if I put an SD card in, it's going to think it's okay and start recording. We'll find out that before we actually fly it. But yeah, it's, you know, it's not set up great, is it? But let's put the top on, let's get the props on, and we'll try and fly it.
Well, I've just got to the field and it started raining, which is like the worst thing ever. It takes 40 minutes to get here, and then against the forecast, black clouds appear. So it's stopped raining for now. I have the feeling it's going to be back. So I better do this quickly. Out to test the little LAL3. We haven't got off on the best of terms, quite frankly. It seemed unfinished, and I've already had to replace the VTX. And frankly, I don't like the fact that the Cadix Baby Turtle is printing stuff all over the screen, which I can't change because they didn't give us anything to change it with. So can this redeem itself? It'll have to fly really good to do it. Oh, I've also had to change out the battery strap, because I put on 854S's and the actual battery strap was too small. To be fair, they were recommending like a 400 something, but on this size quad, that's not going to last very long. So bigger batteries, but I can't really blame them because they had the strap for the size of the battery they suggested. Anyway, let's get and fly it before it really comes down again.
So yeah, just to explain, after saying I'd had the original working and I was going to try it, more testing, and I just did not trust it. I did not want to do a 40-minute walk to the field just to have the VTX fail. So I did replace it with the one that was in the XF140, which is similar
but not the same. Now, it could be the fact me messing around with it had broken the VTX, or it could just be it was a dodgy VTX, or it could be that the VTX was working and that's how it was. I didn't want to risk it. So what I'm going to do is say, okay, maybe it was me that broke the VTX, and therefore I'm going to pretend this was the original and it was fine out of the box. I did want to fly this and show you what it was like in 25 milliwatts, because it's not the VTX that's the problem here. It's the combination of the VTX and noise from the Caddx Baby Turtle, which looks quite bad at 25 milliwatts. And I actually took off and forgot to get my DVR recording initially, so I had to come back, land, and do the flight quickly again. But I just wanted to compare this with what happens if you do it at 200 milliwatts before we go ahead and look at the HD footage. And here we are flying at 200 milliwatts, and you see we still get a problem with that noise coming in. And it's not so much an issue flying with this camera when you're just sort of, up high over a field, because everything's just sort of a blob of green. It's more of a problem when you're looking at obstacles. So I know, for example, that there's this sort of open barn type thing here, but I can't really see it. I'm having to sort of use the force, or the fact I've got a memory of where that is. So it's hard to go and fly it when you haven't done it before. But let's go ahead now and we'll show what we're getting between this camera and the HD footage. With apologies to people who are watching this wearing earphones, I just wanted to show you that that's the noise you get from the recording camera, and that's without me scaling it back. So this was actually a battery number 4 on my 4S, and I'd put the camera angle up a little bit so I could fly a bit faster. And the thing to say about this quad is it actually flies really very nicely. There are a couple of things it doesn't do very well. It does not handle its own prop wash at all very well, but it's on an earlier version of Betaflight where advances have been made to sort of counter that. But yeah, it actually feels really nice. However, it's kind of offset by the fact that the Turtle HD camera is really bad as an FPV camera. As I said, not so bad if you're out in the middle of the field like this. Very bad if you're going through more challenging light conditions, as I do in a bit here. But yeah, I mean, it really did sort of split my mind about it. It would be very easy to completely hate this quad if it came out of the box sort of unfinished, not connected properly, had a failed VTX, and then flew like crap. But it actually flies very nicely. It's pretty nippy. It does swallow the battery pretty quick, I noticed, although I suppose these batteries are a little bit longer in the tooth now. But yeah, I was having good fun actually flying it when I was getting into it. But I just can't ignore some of the facts here. And aside from the fact, that I don't like the picture we're getting from the Caddx Baby Turtle, it's very hard to sort of judge where I'm going when I'm going through these sort of overhanging trees because the lighting's not quite right. I don't like the fact that we've got, the Caddx stuff stuck all over the place because they didn't give us any means of turning that off or changing it. And I don't like the fact that, so much about this quad was unfinished, but I will admit, nothing wrong at all with the way it flies, quite liking the way it flies, which is a bit annoying because you sort of come up with the fact, is it worth that trade-off? Is it worth the fact that they didn't finish it properly and it had some bits that were just wrong? Does that counter the fact it flies quite well? And on the scale of things, probably not. There's better quads you can get out of the box and they will just fly. So I was flying this with 850 mAh 4S batteries mainly, but this was designed to fly 3S or 4S according to the info on it. So I took out a 3S 650 battery and this is the result. And it feels a lot more sort of gentle. It's not so much fun to fly because it just doesn't have the power there. You can fly it around and cruise around okay, and it feels like
what you might want to fly if you're a beginner and you didn't want it sort of running away with you. But you can see, you know, I do a couple of 100% punch outs and it's sort of really quite pedestrian. But it doesn't stop, you know, flying around doing acro maneuvers and stuff. That's all good. But yeah, it didn't set my world on fire. So what do we think of the HD footage? I've already made my point very clear about I don't like the FPV camera. The HD footage it's okay. I should explain that I shoot at 1080p 60 and I checked it and the bit rate's about 31 megabits per second. But I always now render the video in 4K because it tends to get a better result on YouTube. The compression isn't as bad. But I do go ahead and I look at this on full screen and play it and have a look. And I have to say, in all these sort of HD cameras from Cadax, I tend to think that the focus looks a little bit soft. And it could be down to the fact that those micro sort of vibrations are causing the sensor just to sort of shake a little bit and give a sort of a slightly blurry view of the action. It always doesn't quite look as sharp as it should do, although when you're in still frame and not moving, it does, which makes me sort of think that. But it's okay. There are the vibrations, there's the odd bit of jello on there coming from the camera because, of course, this doesn't have anything like the sort of stabilization technology that you get on a GoPro and stuff. But that said, it's probably acceptable for a lot of things depending what you're doing. You can, of course, go back into the tune and you can have a bit more of a go. I don't know if you can do anything with ND filters on this particular one, but yeah, it's okay. That's what I would say. I don't like the camera generally because I don't like the FPV view. I don't particularly like the image we're getting from the HD, but it's okay. It's meh.
Well, that was the LAL3, and when it's finished, perhaps it'd be better because it just didn't feel set up, which is a real shame because the actual quad flew very well, but the lack of attention to detail in the setup really ruined it. The fact that we were on a really old version of Betaflight and we couldn't take advantage of some of the things. I mean, I began to doubt some of it. I was like, really? Is it BR-Heli-32? And I checked it and it was. So why didn't they run Betaflight 4.1 or later so they could run the RPM filters and have a much smoother and nicer experience? Don't know. Why didn't they have SmartAudio set up correctly? They physically didn't have the right cable. Okay, my VTX failed. Perhaps that was just me being a bit heavy-handed. But, you know, I wouldn't have had to fiddle with it if it was set up correctly. Now, it could just be me, the good old reviewer's curse. So, of course, if you were ever thinking about looking at anything like this, don't just take my review. Go and watch a whole bunch of reviews and see if they had that slight problem. But just make sure they are actually looking at things critically and not just being, yay, this is amazing, everything is great. But yeah, overall, I can't recommend it really. The baby turtle comes down to personal view. For me, the FPV camera wasn't good enough. The HD footage is okay. It was the rest of it. It just wasn't good enough. The fact I had to fit these by myself to try and keep them out of the way because they didn't come with anything. The fact that the whole VTX thing wasn't right. The fact that we didn't have anything to change the Cadax Turtle config. It's just not right. It's just not where it should be. The Diatone Eachine ER349 SX, I think that's it, on the other hand, was really good out of the box and still my favourite quad, and I would buy this over this millions of times over. So unless there's something very, very specific about this you want, look somewhere else, would be my advice. That said, because it actually flew okay, I might go and do some more stuff on this, and that's mainly because I have a couple of 20mm stack VTXs to test out. Although to do that, I would swap this camera out, and that will let me upgrade Betaflight and see what we can get out of it. So you might see this again soon, but in the meantime, this has been the LAL3 from Eachine. Kindly supplied by reviews from Banggood, so thanks to Banggood. And links are available down below if you want to check it out in more detail, but I would advise something else. Anyway, hope that review's been helpful, and I'll catch you next one. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.